Kerry topping the charts, 38 All Irelands, defending champions. They beat Dublin by a point in the semi-final last year. Dublin, they'll beat Kerry 5 times in the championship between 2011 and 2019. And their last Maguire Cup was in 2020. That was their 6th in succession. So epic is the word, folks. Epic. And in this instance, it is justified. To look ahead, we have on the line All Ireland winners with Kerry and Dublin, respectively, Sean O'Sullivan and Ger Brennan. How are we doing, lads?
Good, John. Hi, Ger.
Hey, John. Sean, how's things?
And we have in studio the 1995 All Ireland winning captain from Dublin, John O'Leary. John, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, great to be here.
Great to have you in as well. And we'll have Fionn Fitzgerald for a bit of Kerry balance after 2, another former winning captain. 53106 for your text, folks. You can tweet us at Off the Ball. You can listen across the country on Newstalk. You can also watch us if you'd like on digital and social channels for Twitter at Off the Ball, YouTube and on Facebook. John, this is special. Dublin and Kerry, what does this mean to you?
It's like tradition, yeah. And it's amazing with all the tweaking they did with the championship this year of the groups and the stages. We end up with the Dublin Kerry final after all of that, which is good to see. But in some ways, it's working and hasn't interfered with sort of tradition. But it's a great rivalry. I was in Croke Park yesterday with the '83 team, and even chatting about the games we would have played against Kerry in '84 and '85, and it just brings back memories all the time, for those great games.
And sadly, in the last year, we lost Brian Mullins as well.
Yeah, I lost Brian Mullins and just before that we lost Richie Crean, one of the subs in the day. So that team, we have 5 of that team who are on the pitch or on the bench in Croke Park have sadly passed away.
Yes, you were involved against Kerry in '84 and '85, and then the Thurles as well. So
I forgot about that.
Yeah, you were selected with Tommy Carr.
I was selected with Tommy Carr, yeah, and. That's the one, the line ball over the bar for the equaliser, was it?
Morris Fitz,
yeah, Morris Fitz, the drawing game. They were 2 fabulous matches. I mean, for to travel for Dublin, it reminded me of Cork in '83 when the Dublin fans would travel away for the semi-final, and it was like that. The feeling in Thurles for both those games was unbelievable. And again, Kerry snuck over the line. Thanks to that fabulous line ball. I remember Tommy Carr was walking up beside him. I think Tommy was shouting in his ear.
It wasn't like the GPS moment with Lee Keegan.
It was a little bit like that, I think, yeah, with a couple of verbals in his ear. It didn't work.
Didn't work. Sean, was playing Dublin different to any other county? Remember 07, you had a late point there in the semi-final. I remember being there that day. The noise was deafening in Croke Park.
It was, John. Yeah, hi, John. It was always a thrill for us to go up to Croke Park and play Dublin. Number one, you were obviously up against a quality team, the likes of Ger's team there. Obviously, we would have him head-to-head on numerous occasions, but it was just the atmosphere, John. You knew you were going to get a packed house, a packed hill, full of blue, maybe with a small pocket of green and gold up in it. And I was listening to Tig Morley talking to your own Tommy Rooney there during the week, and Tommy asked Tig about playing Dublin. And sure, look, you want to play the best. You ask any player out there, you want to play the best, you want to challenge yourself against the best, and it'll be no different tomorrow. As far as I'm concerned, you have the 2 best teams in the country going up against it tomorrow. And sure, what more do you want as an inter-county footballer from when you put on a pair of boots from when you're a young fella? You want to go to the biggest day, and you want to earn it, and you want to play against the best. But I have to say, it's I've always had an affinity for Dublin, and it actually goes back to John O'Leary's days, and it was a privilege to hear he was coming on, because it wasn't a good day for John, but for me it was a great day. My first ever time in Croke Park was the 20th of August 1989, John, the All Ireland semi-final, Cork and Dublin. My father and my late uncle Patrick brought me. It was my first time in Croke Park. We were up in the Upper Hogan stand. A tough day for you, John. Cork won by 2-10 to 1-9. I think John Cleary might have got a couple of goals, maybe a penalty.
I think a penalty, two penalties.
Two penalties.
Two, was it? Yeah. But from that day, and of course, we wouldn't let it be known, but we were shouting for the Dubs because Cork were after beating us in the Munster final. So always have had an affinity. And of course, if as a young fella growing up in Kerry in the 80s, and early 90s, if you weren't given a copy of that famous videotape, Kerry's Golden Years, then there was something wrong. And geez, the games there from 75 all the way up to the early 80s, obviously some of which John were involved in, were just cracking football games. And it definitely gave me the first taste of what Kerry and Dublin meant. And I think it even shows how close both sets of those players kept, like the 70s teams and the early 80s teams. Those Kerry and Dublin players are still very good friends. So just goes to show you what it meant to them both on and off the field.
Ger Brennan, anybody south of the Red Cow would have the Golden Years in their VHS, but anybody north of that would have Decade of the Dubs.
It's amazing. Like there's a whole cohort of people in Dublin have now grown up and they don't know losing. And one of my first games, Sean, just listening to you there, myself and a few lads in transition year, we jumped on the train down to Thurles, and we got someone to go into a shop to pick us up a couple of drinks, shall we say. And we had a great time going down watching the match. I remember Maurice Fitzgerald sticking that ball over the bar and then trying to get back on the train in time. But it was just a wonderful experience, the atmosphere, the crowd, the fanfare that was around the Dublin Kerry game. But I probably grew up in my teens and my early career, John, where we were losing to Sean's teams, and we were always trying to close the gap. And it was a Kerry, a Tyrone, and a Cork. They were the kind of front runners during probably a 10-year period, and it was always trying to pit yourself against those guys and see what you were really made of. And I think there's something again Sean touched on as well. You only knew where you were at as a player when you're playing against the best players, and that's something obviously Tyke Morley and the Kerry lads are embracing going into the match tomorrow. And to be able to step foot on the field to play against a Dub if you're a Kerry man or vice versa, it's a special occasion, and it's an opportunity to actually put yourself up there as a star, no more than what Kevin McBennan was done for us, Sean O'Shea last year in the semi-final, and obviously David Clifford is writing all sorts of records, or he certainly will be by the time he finishes, you know.
Ger, what is the best thing about winning on All Ireland?
The best thing, well, I suppose when we started in 2011, we went around to the few schools and kids camps and all the important stuff that All Ireland winners do, and visiting the hospitals, and Sean and John would have done it as well in the past. And kids would always ask that question, John, what's it like to win All Ireland? And I came up with a way to try to help them understand it. And it was, if you think back to Christmas Eve, you're going to bed. You can't sleep because you're too excited. Is Santa going to come? Can you hear him? Can you hear any roofs on the reindeer on the roof of the house? Can you hear bells? All the stuff going on as a kid, and then you wake up Christmas morning, John, and you go down to the sitting room, as was the tradition in our house, as a family, and you sneak open the sitting room door, and all of a sudden you see Santa came. There's the presents, there's the thing you asked for. It's indescribable joy and jubilation that you have. And for me, John, that's the only way I can help someone who hasn't won an All Ireland get a sense of what it does feel like, you know.
It's a very good way of putting it, Ger. It was 12 years apart for you, John, in 83 and 95, and you had a few disappointments in the middle. What was it to feel like for you?
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough to play in 6 finals. We won the first one and won the last one. So that was 4 in between. So I had the ups and downs, and we had a big long gap down in the middle between, if you go from 83 to 95, 12 years, which is unheard of now in terms of, tell kids that happened, when I was playing, and they find it hard to believe. But it's just that... I think maybe the older you get, it's like, being in Croke Park yesterday, meeting the lads from the 83 team, just meeting them and just sort of that nod or shaking of hands or sort of the embrace. And then just talking to people. I mean, it's almost just knowing you've won it at this stage. I don't know where the medal is. You don't even have to medal. It's just that and it's that sort of inner sense of satisfaction that you achieve, the ultimate goal, and it's that sort of contentment.
For you, Sean, what's it like?
The week after it, John, is pretty good. I'm not.
Did you disappear, Sean? Did you? Did you disappear?
Yeah, a lot of us disappeared, but no, we would have disappeared if we lost one after winning one. We were front and centre. No, look, to echo what the two lads said, it's that sense of accomplishment. It's that and knowing that when you do sit down and have a drink with the other. What was on a panel 30, the other 29 fellas after on the Monday or the Tuesday, and you can just sit back and say, look, this is what we set out to do as a group, and we achieved it. And you achieve it with these guys who, you're in the same bubble with them for a long, long time, and you're all driving towards the one goal. And it's as John, I think, said there, it's just that real sense of accomplishment and achievement. And that's it. And look, you put it aside then, and you just straight away you're starting looking forward to the following year. And can you either go and defend it, or if you've lost one, can you go and get back to the top table again and try and reclaim it? So it's a non-stop process. But you do allow yourself in those couple of weeks after to, I suppose, bask in the glory of it, and it means a lot. I mean, the lads will tell you're playing since you're young. You put on the boots. You're playing with the club. You get that chance with the county, and sure, it's the ultimate reward, really, to get the Celtic cross. So yeah, very, very proud as the lads are as I'm sure you know.
On the Christmas theme, there is a selection box of topics, and I'm just going to pick them out like I pick out a chocolate bar, lads, to be honest. Ger, I'm going to start with you, because I know you were on AM yesterday and you spoke about a few things, but I'm going to maybe touch on a few different things with you today. Con O'Callaghan, we're talking about Stephen Cluxton, Paul Manning, Jack McCaffrey back, but Con O'Callaghan missed the game last year, the semi-final, which Dublin lost by a point. Not much talk about this. Do we expect maybe a defining game this season from him tomorrow if he plays inside?
And I think a lot of the talk last year, John, was, well, if Conor Callaghan had been playing, he would have cancelled out what Clifford contributed on the scoreboard, and Dublin could have been in another final. So now we're going to get an answer to that tomorrow, because Con is fit and he is available. And then I think we've got that added bit of weight with the other three lads coming in as well, with Steve and Paul and Jack McCaffrey coming back in. But I suppose sticking to Con, the way he's playing at the moment, John, the position he's taken up, he doesn't tend to be quite as deep as we've seen him play previous years. He seems to be picking up a pocket kind of in between the 45 and the full forward line, which probably asks a couple of questions then of his marker. Again, likely Jason Foley. Does he come out with him a bit, or does he pass him on to a Tyg Morley if Tyg isn't covering? So Con taking up that position, it's nearly like a little triangle where he's at the apex, and then you have a Colin Basquel and Cormac Costello in behind, running lateral runs in and out, but they seem to be staying in that space, and that's just from watching the lads so far this year. But in relation to Con, he's been very consistent. Is he as, say, prolific on the scoreboard as we've seen in previous campaigns, not including last year with the injuries he had? He probably hasn't. He's not maybe scoring as many goals, but at the same time, he's just an incredible player to watch. And I would put him up there with Clifford's. To be honest, Con can do it any way. Let it in long, in low. Con is going to win the majority of the balls that he receives, and then just his all-round game sense as well. His the beauty of Con and Cormac and Basquel. I'd hate to be marking the lads tomorrow if it was Kerry, but they always want to go for goal first, and they're always standing you up as a defender. They win the ball, they turn, and then they want to take you on. A lot of players now, the way the coaching has gone, they're getting out in front to win the ball, and they just keep running back out to where the ball came from and recycle over the other side. So I think, again, you have context with that position kind of on the edge of the Z. It'll cause a couple of bother for Kerry, and probably Jason Foley and Tyg Morley will have to have good communication between them to see who's picking them up.
John, would you start Kieran Kilkenny?
No.
Why not?
Well, don't get me going on the way football has evolved. I think he's too much back and forth across the pitch. I think Dublin need to go direct. And I think when he came on the semi-final, was against Mayo, or quarter-final, he'd made a difference, but he made a difference in the way he played. I think when he came on was much more direct. So I don't like when he goes back and forth across the pitch. I think causes Dublin problems. It's easy to defend. Any team can defend again if you get fellas in ahead of the ball. So I think if he comes on and has the impact he had in the quarter-final, by running direct and taking Kerry on and taking players on, because he can easy pick off 3 or 4 points. I think if he runs and gets into that space and takes fellas on, puts them under pressure and asks questions, because he's well able to score from anywhere. So I'd prefer him coming in at the moment, and hope that he would play very direct.
Yes. Sean O'Shea and David Clifford have got over 50% of the scores this season for Kerry. Is that an issue? Is that a worry in terms of the other forwards' contribution? Are they there to do different things? Are they doing enough, I suppose? Is the 6 doing enough?
No, John, in an answer they're not, and that's what we're hoping for will change tomorrow. That's why I think Stephen O'Brien is in from the start tomorrow. Stephen brings you that scoring threat from the half-forward line. I think it asks questions of this Dublin backline, the half backline, by starting Stephen. I think it's going to ask questions to Desi Farrell, who he puts on Stephen. Stephen is fresh. He's had a difficult year with injury. It's like he's peaked at the right time. He was very effective at half time in the Derry game when he came on. In the second half. I know that the talk down here earlier in the week was possibly that Jack goes with the same 15 and springs Stephen, but I just think we need that threat from our half forward scoring wise. We're not getting it. Shawnee and David will get us the scores. There's no doubt about that. Obviously, Shawnee has the free-taking ability as well. But I just feel that tomorrow it's going to lean itself the way that the rhetoric has gone all week in the past couple of weeks, and that the focus is on David a lot. I think it's a day for someone like a Paul Ganey, a Paddy Clifford, even a Stephen O'Brien to come to the fore. And we know what David's going to bring us, John. That's not an issue. You know, we think Michael Fitzsimons will pick him up with a little bit of help maybe from Brian Howard covering. I think David will be okay. He always is. Nothing phases that young man. He's just got that ability since he was a young lad to take on the biggest day in his career, as if he was playing with Fossa, in a club game. So no issue there. The issue is going to be, can he get the help from around the field? And I think, as I say, that's why Stephen is in. Paul Ganey has been threatening to come with a big game. We need it. Shawnee's going to have to bring it. Darragh Moynihan is a guy who I think gets a little bit of unfair criticism. Yes, he's not an out-and-out scorer, but he does a real, amount of work up and down the line for us, covering, defending. Could we do with him adding a couple of scores tomorrow? Absolutely. We're also going to need maybe Diarmuid O'Connor to chip in. And look, we know what Gavin White and Tom Sullivan and these guys can offer going forward, even Paul Murphy. So for Kerry to win tomorrow, absolutely, we're going to need scores coming from all other departments rather than just our 11 and our 14.
53106 for your text. So on my way home from work and listening to you guys about the match tomorrow, and just passing through Adair, and the Kerry team passed me. From Dominic the Dub, living in Limerick, up the Dubs. Fair play to you, Dominic. Ger, I know you're on the road as well. Ger, Jack McCaffrey, I remember in the 19 drawn game, he was like he was on a motorbike. It was unbelievable. Does he still have that X factor? He might not have it for 70 minutes, but does he still have it?
He absolutely has that X factor, and he is so direct and like John described there, when you actually run out an opposition, those packed defences, get in behind, run through the gaps, get the opposition defending, running towards their own goal, as opposed to just going laterally across the field, which is easier to defend. Jack's ability then, actually in some ways his inability to actually go sideways is what's wonderful about him. He just wants to go straight for the jugular, and he'll cause all sorts of problems. He'll drag one or two people with him. In Jack's case, does he have the 70 odd minutes to exert that level of stress on his hamstrings? The fact he's not starting would suggest that he doesn't, and that by bringing him in for 10, I think he said he get maybe about 20 odd minutes the last day. That's all that Jack has in the tank. But you do know when Jack is coming on, even if you're a wing forward for Dublin and you see Jack picking up the ball in the half back line or 65, you know that follow Jack's run, break off and cut in, and he's going to draw a couple of guys with him, and then a bit of space will open up and you pop it off, But he's a huge addition to be able to bring in off the bench.
Just as much as everybody enjoys watching David Clifford, John, like Jack McCaffrey is something else to watch when he's in full flow.
Oh, he's incredible. I mean, I've showed clips of him to my own team when you're sort of coaching them, getting to run up players and see what you can do, and get other younger players to sort of run off him as well. And I think Gerard's right. There's probably about 20 minutes in him there, and it's probably about being strategic of when you bring him on and who you might bring him on to defend against on the Kerry side. He's superb. And even the point he got the last day, taking off, you just put on the afterburners. You think he's going to break the gain line, and hopefully he can easily pop over 2 points again into that space, and running at players, which is very, very difficult to defend against. We'll always ask questions of teams. So he's I wish he was on from the start and had more energy in the legs, I think, or the fitness in the legs. But he's a great player and great guy as well, great attitude.
Jared, maybe give us an insight before we go into the dressing room tomorrow. A lot of strong characters, a lot of multiple winners of All Ireland in this Dublin dressing room. Is there much said? Can you maybe give us a peek behind the window into one of these big days?
Yeah, I suppose in the lead up to it, from the semi-final, you do your bit of, not to bore people, but you do your bit of analysis on how the game went, where you can improve. And then, the first half of that week after the semi-final against Monaghan is just a bit about recovery and a bit of learning. And then probably that Thursday session of week one of the 2-week prep, John, you start looking more at Kerry and how they played more so in their last 2 games as opposed to the Munster Championship or that. And there's a great analysis team there with Desi. They'll have a brief put together on the strengths and weaknesses of the different Kerry players, how many minutes each man has played, their styles of play. And again, we've a lot of experienced players in that dressing room. They'll dip into that brief as much as they feel they need to. Some lads will spend a lot of time with it. Some lads are happy enough that they've a good understanding of the game, and I think we're probably advantaged then tomorrow, John, in the dressing room before the match, is that there'd be no fear or panic if the game does go against us. Like, Kerry are going to get a goal at some stage, and Dublin too. But if Kerry were to get a bit of a run on the starting off, the lads won't panic. And similarly to Limerick last week against Kilkenny and their semi-final against Galway, they were down by 6 points in both halves, but they kind of tweaked one or two things, but stuck to their kind of core principles of play. And over the course of the 70 minutes, they grounded out the result. And I think that's something that Dublin should be able to do then tomorrow. It's a special place to be in, John. It's a very privileged place to be in, as the lads will share with you. There's all sorts of adrenaline going through the system, and to be in an All Ireland final, dressing beforehand, is just an amazing thing. And I think our lads will be able to manage that expectation. And they're more than Kerry as well, to be fair. They obviously bet us last year in the semi-final. They're defending champions. They have a bit of a monkey off the back. Maybe the pressure on those guys, as Sean will tell you more accurately, is, you know, if you're a one-in-a-row team in Kerry, who cares? You need to put it back-to-back. You need to win 2 or 3 of them over the course of your career, at least, to have some sort of kudos down there. And that's where Dublin's at now too, you know.
So, Ger, before we take the break, we'll have Fionn Fitzgerald after 2 with Sean and John here. Ger, Brennan, why are Dublin going to win it? What's going to be the winning and losing for you that gives you the confidence that they're going to come back and win the Sam Maguire Cup again?
I think we just have more firepower coming in. Kieran Kilkenny, Jack McCaffrey coming in, Dean Rock. Dean, he scored 1-2. Or it was 1-1 and 1-2 the last day he came in. Jack contributed a point, setting up numerous scores as well, more than Kieran. And I just think we have a bit more quality coming in off the bench. Also, the matchups defensively, I think our backs have a slight bit more in the tank. And again, if we can keep David Clifford to I would say 8 points, I think that's a good day out for the Dublin defence. That's how good he is. And then the guys that come in, then they finish the job. I think we'll just have to do much. I see it going down to maybe the 64th, 5th minute, John, with Dublin maybe pushing through in the last 7 or 8 minutes of what's left and winning by 3 or 4 points. Ger
Brennan, enjoy Christmas morning.
Thanks, John.
And after the break, we're going to have Sean O'Sullivan staying with us from Kerry. Fionn Fitzgerald will also join us from the Kingdom. John O'Leary, thankfully, is with us in studio as well. Just to bring you up to date on scores elsewhere in sport, Argentina placed South Africa in the Rugby Championship at 405, but New Zealand have thumped Australia by 38 points to 7 earlier today. So New Zealand on a great run and Australia on a terrible run. At the Women's World Cup, Panama 0, Jamaica 0 after 22 minutes earlier. Sweden beat Italy by 5-0 in Group G, and in Group F, France 2, Brazil 1 is a full-time score. We have the rugby warm-up as well. Scotland, Italy 3:15. The major in golf, the Evian Championship. Leona Maguire, as you'd expect, as dogged as ever, getting the best out of herself. 4 under par round today to get to 3 under par and a tie for 14th right now on 3 under. She is, though, 8 shots behind the leader, Céline Boutier of France. That's what's going on there. And also on the show today, we're going to preview the Galway races. We're going to get the latest from the Women's World Cup with Kathleen McNamee. Down under, we'll get the update from Brisbane. We'll also speak to Zach Maradi on hurling. We'll get the best of the football pod highlights from Thursday's chat. That was with Paul Galvin and Cian O'Sullivan joining Tommy Rooney, Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue at Croke Park. A brilliant conversation you'll hear at about 4:20. But after the break, more from our live panel here on the football final tomorrow. Kerry against Dublin, 53106. You want to get in touch with a comment or a question to John O'Leary, Dublin captain of the All Ireland winning team of 83. Well, he was on the team then and he captained in 95. Fionn Fitzgerald will be joining us after 2 from Kerry with Sean O'Sullivan. We're back after the news.
Have you seen our new electric vehicles yet? Thanks to our new car partner Volkswagen, we're out and about in style. Experience all-electric acceleration in the ID3 hatchback from Volkswagen, official car partner of News Talk.
Take a deep breath. Reach for your headphones. Choose the News Talk app. hard shoulder, then tune in with Kieran Cuddihy to tune out. This is News Talk.
You are listening to the Hard Shoulder. Kieran Cuddihy with you until 7 o'clock.
The Oireachtas Committee have indicated that they're going to write to her anyway.
How often did you change your sheets when you were in college?
A whole term when I changed my sheets.
Oh, I'm leaving now. Bye.
What actually are you prepared to compromise on if there is a new Ireland?
The Hard Shoulder.
With Nissan.
Weekdays from 4 on News Talk. Conversation that counts.
Trees, grass, allergies. You won't take me down. Don't let pollen ruin your plans. Say yes to life outdoors with fast-acting, long-lasting, 24-hour relief. Telfast Allergy. Now available over the counter from your local pharmacy. Telfast Allergy tablets contains fexofenadine hydrochloride. Always read the label. Distributed in Ireland by Clonmel Healthcare.
What makes us love our county so fiercely, despite all the summers of hurt? What lifts us back up year after year after year? What stirs such passion in our hearts and brings us out in our thousands? It's something intangible, deep in our veins. It's our county. It's our people. It's in our blood. AIB, the toughest. Proud sponsors of the All Ireland Senior Football Championship.
Discover the Bosch laundry range at Paris City. Big loads, no biggie. With a large capacity A-rated Bosch washing machine. For more information, go online to pariscity.ie or call in store today.
That's Seamus, a grown man sleeping like a baby. You see, under his pillow is his Volkswagen service book, which he knows is worth its weight in gold. That's because 9 out of 10 drivers in Ireland would pay more for a Volkswagen serviced with official Volkswagen expertise. So let's leave Seamus to his sweet dreams while you book a service for your Volkswagen at volkswagenservice.ie. Volkswagen.
Never before have we lived in a time where science and medicine have been so vital. At Eli Lilly and Company, we use groundbreaking science to create medicines that make life better for people around the world. Our manufacturing campus in Limerick will play a key role in Lilly's global mission of continuous innovation. We're now recruiting for new roles in science, engineering, quality assurance and quality control. Find your place at Lilly Limerick. Visit careers.lilly.com and search Limerick.
From family breaks to Mediterranean escapes, make it a summer to remember and discover our best Irish and European hotel deals at gobreaks.ie.
Go Breaks! Are you suffering from dodgy internet connection? Symptoms include endless loading, embarrassing freeze face. Luckily, there's a cure. 3 home broadband in Ireland's fastest and most consistent 5G network. Get it free for the first 3 months and for only €39 per month after that. Plus, no setup costs. You don't want to miss this. Visit in store or at 3.ie. 24-month minimum term. Subject to location and availability. Speeds may vary. Based on analysis by Ookla Speed Test Intelligence data Q3 to Q4 2022.
Time for an outdoor makeover? Roadstone Retail have got porcelain paving, block paving, limestone and granite, decorative gravel, walling, and everything you need to get the job done. Transform your outdoor space with Roadstone Retail. Our new displays are open to the public nationwide. Shop online or find your nearest store. Visit roadstone.ie.
At Centra, shop smart and feel good with great offers this week. Like Centra Fresh Irish Chicken Fillet 680 gram, only $7.50. Dr. Utker Ristorante Pizza Selected Range, now €2 each. And Heineken and Coors 12 bottle packs, €15 each. Centra. Live every day. Enjoy alcohol sensibly.
On 106 to 108 FM. On the News Talk app, powered by Go Loud and smart speakers. This is News Talk.
It's 2 o'clock. Good afternoon. A leading homeless charity says they are not surprised the homeless numbers have risen again. The number of homeless people in Ireland increased by 1.5% last month. A total of 12,600 people were in emergency accommodation in June. Wayne Stanley, Executive Director of the Simon Communities of Ireland, says the current government housing policies are not working.
As I say, when you have a broken housing system, you've increased homelessness. So it's the same reason why young people are emigrating, because they can't find accommodation. It's the same reason why we have, the parents have their son, his partner and their 2-year-old in a box room upstairs and they can't find accommodation. So though that kind of is the other side of it. So it's the entirety of the problem.
Gardaí are investigating an incident in Cork where it's alleged a petrol bomb was thrown at a former school in Ballincollig. There are reports 3 people wearing balaclavas were seen smashing windows at the old vacant Gaelscoil I Riadon while trying to set it ablaze on Friday morning. Gardaí say they're investigating an incident of criminal damage by fire and that a technical examination of the scene took place yesterday. Local councillor Colm Kelleher says speculation isn't helpful.
We don't know the motives of these attackers, whether it's something to do with possibly an anti-Ukrainian sentiment or whether it's to do with, antisocial behaviour, and it's just a bunch of idiotic youths, and I would just appeal for calm and allow the Gardaí to carry out their investigation.
Gardaí are appealing for witnesses following a serious road collision involving a scrambler in Dublin. The incident occurred shortly before 10 p.m. last night on the Wheatfield Road in Palmerstown. The driver of the scrambler, a man in his 20s, is currently being treated at Beaumont Hospital for serious injuries. Gardaí are asking anyone who saw the incident or those with camera footage to come forward. A lotto player in Dublin is kicking off their weekend as Ireland's newest millionaire. That's following Friday night's Euromillions Ireland-only raffle draw. The National Lottery has confirmed that a notification to the user's online account as well as an email has now been sent to the lucky ticket holder. It's 2:02.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Best birthday present ever. Give a Ryanair gift card.
Bright and blustery today with sunny spells and scattered showers. Highest temperatures of 16 to 20 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Saturday panel on Off the Ball.
And you're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you 3 to 5. We're streaming the panel as well. As you're listening on News Talk across the country, you can watch us on the Off the Ball digital and social channels for Twitter at Off the Ball, YouTube and Facebook as well. You can text us 53106, cost of 30 cent, and tweet us at Off the Ball. We're continuing the build up to the All Ireland Senior Football Championship final with Kerry's All Ireland winner Sean O'Sullivan. John O'Leary's Dublin's ex-winning captain in the studio with me. We also had another man on the line who lifted the Sam Maguire Cup in the Hogan stand, Fionn Fitzgerald. Fionn, how are you?
I'm good, John. Thanks.
Good to talk to you, Fionn. We asked the lads at the very start of the conversation, and Ger Brennan as well, the best thing about winning the All Ireland. What was that for you, Fionn?
I suppose there's a load of different things come afterwards, but I suppose that initial, for me, it was my first All Ireland medal. It's just a huge something. I suppose you're aspiring to achieve when you're younger, and I suppose the first part for me was obviously lifting Sam Maguire, but then going home is a big part of it. I think maybe the Tuesday afterwards is probably a big day when you get home to the club, spend a bit of time with family and stuff like that. But yeah, it brings back good memories anyway. That's for sure.
Dr. Crokes.
Yeah, back in Crokes, and like I said, I suppose you're getting to see a lot of the faces. The first day or two, it's very full on, and it's obviously brilliant as well, of course, but when you get to bring it back to the people you I suppose you get to spend most time with, that's probably what makes it most special, really. How
you feel Kerry are doing this year, Fionn?
I think Kerry and Dublin, to be honest, have been lacking a bit of fluency. I suppose they really have only surfaced properly since the quarter-final, and that's when we really started to see things click. The last day against Derry, then probably maybe, I won't say a step backwards, but it certainly wasn't building strongly on the quarter-final win against Tyrone. But I think they did show a bit of gumption in the last 10 minutes, and they probably showed a little bit of experience, which is great to see, because going back maybe 3 years ago, I don't think that kind of level of experience and kind of game know-how was there, and possibly maybe left a couple of titles behind them on the back of that.
Do you think it comes then, Fionn, from last year's semi-final and the final then?
I do. I think like winning close games like that is certainly a habit, and I think Dublin are probably a good example of that. If you look at Dublin there from maybe 15 onwards, there was literally a point in a lot of those games, Kerry, Mayo, etc., for a couple of years, and I do think that there's a habit to it, and there's a lot of kind of a game sense or know-how that you develop. And the likes of the Dublin game last year, I think that was a monkey off the back, even though I kind of would say they almost fell over the line last year against Dublin. I think that the Derry kind of last 10 minutes was a little bit more assured, and hopefully there might be something like that if the game goes down the stretch in the last 10 minutes tomorrow as well. You've known David Clifford quite a while. You were lecturing him once, were you, Fionn? Yeah, he did 4 years in Tralee with us. He's a brilliant guy, really. he first came in when I think he was just after he was a Badger minor. He finished coming off, was it the first minor win he won, and he joined there. And I remember at the time we used to have maybe every lecturer was assigned a scholarship student, and I just remember dealing with David. I couldn't get over his maturity for a 17-year-old, and I was actually playing with him at the time. I was playing while he was joining, but I mean, for a 17-year-old, his head was well strapped on, so he didn't need much support or help there anyway. Did you mark him in 18? Did you in training? Not really too much, to be honest. I actually don't remember marking him at all, really, which I probably was lucky to be honest about that. But what I would say was that he really took to the whole thing like a duck to water. He was always a very kind of calm and assured kind of guy. But there's nearly always a bit of a bedding in period for, we call it a young, very talented player, superstar coming through. He just didn't seem to get that at all. He just came in and I thought I couldn't get over how well he took to it. Yeah. And his development now, do you feel he's as good as ever? Oh, I think that's that. Look, he's nearly built on it every year. I suppose like the most impressive part about David really is obviously his football ability is great. But I mean, there's loads of talented footballers over the last couple of decades. It's just his ability to sense when he's needed most, particularly in the big games. That could be at club level as well. He just has this innate ability to really go at it when he's really needed. And like I remember last year in the Galway game, I thought in the first half particularly they needed him nearly more than the second half, and thought he was outstanding then. He's just done it time and time again that way. Same with Fossa. He could be quiet for a lot of games when he probably isn't needed as much, but when the need is greatest on the biggest day, it's there's very few top level sports people who can churn that out day in day out, and he's just one of those. He's in a very elite league that way. Cian O'Neill was on with Ger Gilroy yesterday, John, and he was saying that he was in favour of the advanced mark, and you told me off air that you were in favour as well, and you said that David Clifford's one of the players who gets the most out of that rule.
Yeah, I think it's a great rule to have in the game, and I just don't understand why more teams just don't exploit it, because if you think it's relatively simple, break out from the defender, play it in smartly and with a space and catch the ball, it's nearly a guaranteed score in every game. So I'd like, if I was coaching a team, even my own under 15 team, we're trying to coach guys to break and get free, and then have the confidence to pass the ball in and catch it and then go for your score. Yeah, it's a skill in the game, and it makes defenders, less pulling and dragging, and puts pressure on defenders to get out in front of the forward and not allow them that sort of 5 or 10 yards. But I think Clifford's one of the few players I see exploiting it, and I think that for every team there's probably 5 points per game that's going missing at the moment, would be my view. We could get a situation, Sean O'Sullivan, where an advanced mark wins an All Ireland.
You could, John. Yeah, you could. It's as John alluded to there. More teams really need to start looking at it. But I think a lot of it too is trying to get your shooter as the receiver. Like for instance, against Derry, I think early in the game, Kerry played one in, and Adrian Spillane caught it. Made the space, made a great run, and caught the ball inside for the mark. But you just felt that Adrian just isn't a regular place kicker, and he just didn't look confident stepping up to it and missed it to the right of the post into the hill. So it's fine. It's a rule that can be used certainly, but I think teams are looking to always nearly try and get their marksman on the end of the mark. So maybe that's why at times we don't see it overly used, because trying to free up those guys who are in for getting extra attention during a game isn't easy. But certainly, you could see it tomorrow. We've got some fantastic players in both forward lines who are good at making space, even with defences as tight as they are these days. The likes of Clifford, the likes of Callaghan, Cormac Costello, Paul Ganey are really, really good at just getting off their marker for that split second. And Fionn will tell you there as a defender, that's all a quality forward needs, is that just that little inch, that little step when he's out, he's in front, and he can call his mark. So I wouldn't like to be any one of those backs picking up those forwards tomorrow, certainly.
What do you think about the Dublin forward unit this year then, Fionn? You would have marked a few of them, not maybe directly, but you would have been in an All-Ireland against Dean Rock, Kieran Kilkenny before. They've got Cormac Costello playing well, Colin Basquel's had a good year, and Conor Callaghan's there again fit now. Yeah, the dynamic of their forwards, obviously the personnel has changed, but I would say the dynamic of their forwards has changed a bit as well. Like if you look at it, let's say Costello and Basquel in particular, they're probably different type of corner forwards than they would have had going back to maybe 5 or 6 years ago. We were talking about maybe a Brogan or
Who else you're talking about? And I can't think of the second, but basically they're different type of personnel. I would say they're nimble, they're fast. Even the ball they're looking for is a little bit different. I think Costello has been outstanding. Like, we always knew he was a super talent, and he probably was just unlucky with maybe the personnel that was there already. And maybe I think he probably could have got more opportunities with Dublin up to now. But he's really, I suppose, he's been the number one forward this year. Khan really hasn't kind of lit yet, which to me I'd be a little bit kind of worried with from a Kerry point of view tomorrow, because someone like that, like if you think of Shane Walsh last year, he wasn't really motoring too well either. There's probably not a huge amount of pressure on him because he hasn't lit it completely yet. I think he could be dangerous, and even Pascal is coming off a poor game the last day. I'd nearly be more concerned with them in a way than Costello tomorrow. And then obviously Kilkenny, to me, like I just think he's been such a fulcrum of what Dublin have done in the last, we'll say, decade or so. I'd be playing him anyway. I just think that he's a super player. He has a good enough record at times against Kerry, and I'd imagine that he'll play, but I don't know.
What about the Kerry defence, and Fionn, are you happy with the way they're shaping up this year? It seems like Graham O'Sullivan, Tom O'Sullivan are unsung heroes at times.
Yeah, well, what I would say is that defensively, like particularly in the league and maybe the likes of the Mayo game, they're under a little bit of pressure at times. Like, if your team aren't playing well, in general, your last line of defence in particular, I know from playing the full back line, is going to always be under pressure. And I don't think the appetite and the work rate that Kerry had in 2022 last year was there from the forwards and so on, and all the way around, and even they weren't dominating midfield. So that, like, ultimately that's going to have an effect on the backs. I think since the work rate has improved overall, and then the backs have tightened up a little bit as well, I think Tom will match up quite well with Cormac Costello, and obviously the interesting battle is going to be Jason Foley and Conor O'Callaghan. And I think Jason has really, like, he's always an incredible athlete, and he was a talented player, but I think he's really stepped up in the last year or two. So I'd be hoping that the two of them can give really strong performances. And Graham O'Sullivan then he's just made for Croke Park. He's got Croke Park legs, so that's something that hopefully he can put maybe Pascal going the other direction.
Sean O'Sullivan, if you're Kerry, do you kick into that Dublin full back line, as Mayo they went quite direct in the first half of the quarter final, and they kind of caused Dublin a problem for about 20 minutes?
They did, yeah, and that Dublin full back line wasn't getting much protection from out the field. The work rate wasn't there from the Dublin midfield half forward line to put pressure on the kicks in. I watched that first half back. I suppose I was just looking for chinks of light for Kerry, really, John, to see where have Dublin been under pressure this year. And that first half against Mayo, they certainly were, and Mayo did it directly. Their kick out was on point. They had runners getting into space. Sometimes Mayo were getting into that Dublin full back line with just maybe 1-2 kick passes, and they were in. The likes of Tommy Conroy, Ryan O'Donoghue, Aidan O'Shea at times was causing them real problems. So certainly Kerry will have looked at that, but look, Dublin will have looked at it as well and said, right, that wasn't up to scratch. We can't leave that happen against the likes of Clifford Gainey and Paddy Clifford. Maybe Shawnee Shea might find himself in there sometimes. So certainly it's an option. Even going back to the start of last year's All Ireland final, Fionn alluded to David getting marks early in the game where they needed him most. I remember Graham Sullivan a few times coming down in front of me in front of the Hogan stand and just putting in nice floated ball into the mixer, and Clifford coming up with a few marks. So it's certainly something Kerry will have looked at times, and from the right areas is the most important thing. No point just lumping ball in on top of the likes of Fitzsimons and Davy Byrne, kind of straight ball, expecting David or Paul Gainey to come out of the sky with them. It's not going to happen. It needs to be angled, direct, nicely floated ball in to give the lads the best opportunity. I don't think it's a thing that Kerry will overuse. We know that the Kerry forwards like that ball played into space with a little bounce in front of them, so they can get a turn on their man and take them on. So, but it's definitely a tactic I'm sure Jack and the management will have looked at for sure.
John, two very important people tomorrow, the goalkeepers, your old position, Stephen Cluxton, Shane Ryan. Not only what they do, but how the other teams anticipate what they do.
Yeah, it's really interesting sort of that game of chess that happens in every game of, the kick-outs, you're going long, you're going short, the possession numbers from your own kick-outs, and whether teams allow you to take the short kick-outs or don't and push up. So it's always a really interesting tactic. personally, I'd like teams to be pushing up and not allowing that short kick out. I love people playing now, taking those 10-yard kick outs would be brilliant.
Was it just straight route one for you back in the day, or
more or less? Yeah. Well, Kevin Heffron, when I got on the team first, he gave me my only instruction ever was keep the ball out of the net and your kick outs long. So it was fairly simple. But in '95 we had a routine where the wing half backs used to walk in towards me, and if the forward didn't follow him, I'd play it, let's say, short to Paul Curran, or if the forward came with him, I'd play it over his head, and Paul Clark would be moving into space. So we had a bit of, and the two midfielders would sort of move to one side and leave that space. So it's interesting to see how those tactics work out, and then when the tactics aren't working out, how you react to it. So there's a lot of pressure on the two guys to get their kickouts, as accurate and as give you the most possession you can, be they short or be they long.
For Cluxton, do you remember him coming on the scene?
Yeah, I was a selector on the under-21 team. I was selected by Tommy Carn, the senior, but we myself and Richie Crean, managed the 21 team with a couple of other guys, and he was, initially when he got involved, he was more or less our third choice goalkeeper. But at the time we started finish, he was the first choice. But a really nice guy, really simple, took instruction well, was dedicated to his sport even at that stage. And we were lucky we lost to Meath in the Leinster final on the 21 in Newbridge. But and then after that we brought him, I think one other guy, onto Barry Calla onto the senior panel as a result of that, and he's been there ever since. He's been brilliant.
What's been the secret to his generational talent?
I don't know really. I think there's an internal drive within him that just he's very driven, he's very self-controlled, and he just knows what he wants to do, doesn't get too excited, doesn't get involved in all the peripheral stuff, and I just admire his dedication to his craft, and what he has brought to the game, and how he's elevated sort of defence and goalkeeping in particular. So I think it's just his whole mental approach is just really, really strong.
And Fionn, Shane Ryan plays outfield for his club. Do you expect to see him a bit, the way Rory Beggan, maybe not to that extent the way he played in the semi-final, but what kind of influence do you think Shane will have in the game tomorrow? Will he kick it long? Will he kick it short? How do you think they'll deal with the press if Dublin do so?
Yeah, Shane is a top outfield player. I mark him quite a bit actually, right more about the road, and he's a super outfield player. So he is a very, what I would say, an advantage to him from playing playing goal at the moment is that he has a very good awareness of what's going on out the field. So from a kick-off point of view, I think this year particularly he's probably built every year on, I suppose, becoming a goalkeeper, because he's not really a goalkeeper by trade. This year though, I think he's been extremely self-assured.
Okay, we just lost Fionn there for a second. You back there, Fionn?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead there.
Sorry, I'm not sure what you got there, but anyway, just basically said Shane is a super outfielder, so I think that definitely gives him a kind of a good insight into what's going on out the field. A lot of the time, I suppose, over the last while, he has been given a lot of the handier balls. They're we call the short kickouts. So I suppose it depends what way Dublin are going to go about it tomorrow. He's a hard man to rattle, I would say that. So as regards going at this, if you said Dublin are going after from a press point of view, it's not going to totally, I would say, throw him too much anyway. And he basically, I would say, is a fairly level-headed guy. So I think he'll be able for that. But I mean, Cluxton is down the other end too, so it'll be very interesting if both teams are adopting similar tactics from that end.
Sean, what do you expect in terms of the press and how that'll influence the midfield battle?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are talking about the midfield battle, John. Obviously, you've got four guys in there who are really athletic. People are saying, well, maybe Dublin have the advantage in the two Bryans, Finton and Howard, from the same club. They have a good understanding. Maybe the Kerry midfield has not got the plaudits that they deserved. I thought they were excellent against Tyrone. I think Diarmuid O'Connor going off for that 10-minute stint in the Derry game, the black card, was crucial. I really do. I think Derry outscored us 4-1 in that period. So I think it shows the importance of Diarmuid to us. Jack Barry has a very, very good history on Brian Finton. Is that good or bad going into tomorrow? I don't know. We'd be hoping Jack can break even again, keep Brian quiet. Brian will maybe be looking at it as if to say, I'm sick of this talk about Jack Barry having my number. I'm going to finally put that wrong to right. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But you're dead right. The way the kick out, the way the midfield battle is going to go will be all determined on the kick out. I think Kerry will mix it a little bit, to be quite honest with you. I think there'll be times where they'll give it up and let Cluxton chip it out short to the full back line and adopt what we did against Tyrone, maybe invite Dublin onto us a little bit and force them down into areas that maybe we can then put pressure on. We were excellent against Tyrone, didn't do it so well against Derry, I thought, so I'd be hoping that we find that defensive I suppose concentration that we had against Tyrone and bring it to tomorrow and bring it tenfold. And then there'll be times where we will press Cluxton and see what he has to offer. But as Fionn said, they're very similar to Shane Ryan. The press won't face Stephen Cluxton. He's been around too long and has played in too many games for that to face him. And he'll go along and he'll trust the boys out the middle of the field to come down with it. That's where we're hoping Kerry will either win it clean or pick up the spoil. So, yeah, it'll be interesting on both sides. There's so many facets to this game, John. It's just so difficult to call. There's so many games within the game. That's what makes it so fascinating.
And Fionn, discipline is important. We saw Johnny Cooper sent off by David Goff in the 19 drawn game. David Goff's back tomorrow. You got to keep your composure.
Yeah, look, as Sean has said already, just even listen to there, you're buzzing for the game tomorrow. I would say that, the juices will be flowing early. Johnny Cooper got a yellow early in that game, if I can remember rightly, and then it was just before half time. So, that kind of a thing is a disaster. I remember the hurling last week. Was it Will O'Donoghue got one? In fairness to him, he was very disciplined after that. It does put the dampener a small bit on it, though, particularly if you're a physical player like a James McCarthy or someone there. You don't want to be picking up a yellow early. I think it's important, but I would say in general, most of the players there would have a good handle on it. But what was the line that we used to always use? It's going to the point of fighting without fighting necessarily. Almost that's the kind of almost the level of aggression, I suppose, needed, or discipline that's needed as well.
It's amazing that the lads in the dressing room with you, John, 95, 8 All Irelands, Jim Gavin, Desi Farrell and Pat Gilroy, and Desi and Pat, it's all the band back together stuff that's going on here now for tomorrow. The last dance, whatever euphemism you want to use to stop Kerry again.
Well, look, it'll be great. You need all your expertise and all your.
Did you keep these lads in line in 95? Did you some of the time?
No, it wasn't too bad. And it's amazing how fellas emerge as managers and sort of selectors who you mightn't have expected. When you're playing with them in the. Is
this the case with the three?
Not so much. Pat was probably a bit surprised initially. Jim was always dedicated to his craft and working, and one of those guys who stay back with you after training for taking shots and frees and all that sort of stuff. So he was very focused on his career and football career and getting better. But it's great to see going full circle. You have Mick Alvin there as part of the setup too, and previously Jason was with that group. So it's great to see ex-players giving back and passing on their knowledge of their experience, be it good or bad, of from their own career. So it's good that they have. I think Pat has probably brought a bit of extra to it this year. I'm not too sure exactly what it is, but I think he has brought extra stuff from his experience from 2011 making that breakthrough, and maybe getting fellas a better balance coming back off probably disappointment last year, to mean back to where they want to be is in the final.
And that's mature from Desi as well to say, look, it's cool, you can come back in, you're my colleague from the past and you're my friend, and look, let's help out.
Yeah, it's really mature and getting the best minds, if you like, behind the team, and leaning on that experience of what actually can we bring back into the squad setup and bring a Pat in. I think is a masterstroke.
What's the Jack O'Connor way then, Sean? You would have played under Jack quite a bit.
The Jack O'Connor way has changed along with the game, John, I would say. I played under Jack's first 2 stints, and actually it was interesting listening to Paul Galvin on the football pod with Tommy and the lads from Croke Park there. He made a very good point about Jack. Jack was he would have been a very hands-on coach. He would have taken you away for a little bit, bits like John said there, a little bit of extra stuff about your position. Not with everybody now. He knew who he needed to work with, and obviously the more experienced guys he didn't have to work with, hands-on as much. But he was very much into, playing to a system and playing positions, playing your position and playing it right, and knowing what to do when the ball was on the opposite side of the field or if it was coming down your side. But what I have to say about him is, since he's come back for his 3rd stint, he's had to come back into a very, very different game, and a game where positions really don't matter anymore. And he's evolved. Now, look, I'm not privy to what goes on in training. Is he doing as much as the coaching as he would have in our time? Possibly not. but I know that he would still like to have a big influence on that. But it just goes to show, John, what a wealth of experience he has and how he's able to develop, because he's come back in, as I said, to a very different game, a modern game, and he seems to have adjusted to it no problem. Big thing for Jack, obviously, is that, look, and I don't think he'll be thinking about this too much tonight or has thought about it, but the one thing he hasn't done, is won back-to-back as a Kerry manager. It would be a huge, huge achievement for him. As I say, he's not going to leave it, affect his thinking or his concentration going into tomorrow. But, what a successful Kerry manager he's been. If he could add that to his CV, then I think he's up there with one of the best.
And we saw with Desi bringing Pat Gilroy in, Fionn, that Jack might have identified something in the Kerry defence by bringing Paddy Talley in, and to be fair, and it's with Dublin as well, there's very few concessions of goals, only the Mayo game and obviously the Derry game for a period when goals were conceded, but he got the defence right before then he thought about the team with David Clifford, obviously the totem pole and the attack.
Yeah, I agree with John as well. Just on that point, I think by Davey it was a masterstroke, and it does show that you're kind of thinking outside the box a bit by doing that. It probably mightn't have been the most popular decision to do what Jack did. I'm not sure a less experienced coach would have got away with it, or potentially would have got more heat for bringing someone in like that. I suppose there'd be a tradition at times that considered that that type of football, or that so-called defensive football, wouldn't work. But I think that it's been more than vindicated, and I think if anything, it's probably allowed the attacking game and flair to kind of flourish a bit better. So it's basically, it has worked well. I suppose earlier in the year, Kerry just seemed to be a little bit far behind, and I'm not sure maybe motivation levels were at the level that they could and should be, but they do seem to be a little bit more at the pitch in the last maybe month or so. I suppose since they got over the quarterfinals, they're really, I suppose, in real championship zone or mode, and I think the defence are a lot meaner. That's what we're hoping for anyway.
What's the buzz down like in Killarney, Fionn? Is everybody up for it? What's the plan for tomorrow?
The plan is hitting Dublin tonight now, so I'll get to meet up with a couple of buddies and maybe some former teammates and all that, so it kind of take in a bit of the buzz. Really excited. I suppose it is rammed on. I know this is kind of coming on quickly. I was actually at the hurling final last week, but it has come on quite quickly. Probably like a different build-up from that point of view, and even last summer as well. It's probably the height of the tour season in Killarney at the moment, whereas traditionally an All-Ireland final is kind of back to school time and all that. But that's all new and that's changed now, so I suppose we just have to get on with it. But I suppose it's busy around anyway, so maybe it kind of gets a little bit swallowed up in that, if that makes sense to you.
Hope you're flying, Fionn. Hope you're flying up and down.
No, I'm not. I'm getting the train.
Sean, are you flying up? Are you flying up this evening, are you?
John, unfortunately, can you believe I'm not going to make it? So it'll be a high stool maybe in the local for me, or a nice quiet room over in the house if I can get an hour. Just things transpired against me today, but yeah, look, it's. I'm looking out the window here. I'm over in my father's office here, just looking out the window, and there's Kerry flags flying here in the gardens. It's great. It's absolutely fantastic. And listen, Fionn will tell you there, it's something that we should never take for granted down here. We're very lucky that we come from a real proud traditional county where at the start of every year you're nearly hopeful that you'll be definitely in the last four, if not the last two, and we're lucky enough over the last while that we have been. So there's only one more to go now tomorrow, and hopefully these lads will bring their best performance of the year, because we have been waiting for it, John. We have been waiting for this big Kerry performance. I know they were very good against Tyrone, but you have to take Tyrone's performance into account. They didn't come in with any great form into that quarter-final, so we're just hoping that our lads are keeping their best to last tomorrow. I'm sure Desi Farrell will be hoping for, and the Dublin supporters will be hoping the same on their side. But I feel that if we can just bring our best, it might be enough to get us over the line, hopefully.
John, you'll be coming in from the club in the north part of Dublin.
From Swords there this morning, and lots of blue flags up all around the place, and they come in through Finglas and Drumcondra, so there's plenty of blue flags around Buntings as well. I think calling the match is really difficult, and you got to be sitting inside it. And sometimes the confidence is, we're going to win it, and he picks somebody else, and 10 minutes later you feel not as confident as I was, depending how the conversation goes. And I think for both teams, as Sean says there, we it's hard to see. I don't think we've seen the best of both teams. For long periods of the game. I mean, Kerry didn't look that convincing against Derry in the semi-final and Dublin to some degree at times against Monaghan. So I think either team could win it. I think it might be a surprise player, it might be the player who win it, rather than the Cliffords or the Conor Callans can be sort of I won't say a fringe player, but an unexpected player to come through, a bit like Merchant scored a goal there a couple of years ago. So I think more confident than I would have been maybe for the semi-final last year for some strange reason, but and maybe that's because McCaffrey is back and Mannion is back, those extra players who were missing last year. So but I think it's going to be close. Bounce of a ball, a free, a tackle or something, a miss, it's going to be it'll be that close. And I think with 3 or 4 minutes to go, I don't think it'll be easy to make a call on who's going to win it.
Dublin by 1 maybe?
Dublin by 1, yeah, I'd take that any day.
Will you take Kerry by 1, Fionn?
I will. I'd bite your hand off for it this minute now, yeah. So I like the same as Dan, really. I don't think anyone can really conclusively say how they can call this. It's a flick of a coin, and I think it's the fact the form lines have been so varied by both is probably what makes it hard. I'd be hoping from a Kerry point of view that we've had a lot of what I would say probably 6 out of 10 performances by the majority of the players in a lot of games, and then you're looking at 2 or 3 really good performances. If we can get maybe 6 or 7 of those up to 7s, 8s, and then another couple of 9 performances, I think that's going to be the difference. And I do think that Kerry have potential to get a lot of those performances on the big day, and I just hope that'll be enough to get maybe a point or 2 in. But there's nothing in it really, kick of the ball.
And for you, Sean, you'd be very close as well?
Yeah, absolutely. To echo the 2 boys, I know a lot of the talk has been about the guys Dublin have back and compared to the last year's semi-final, and absolutely we take that on the chin down here. The Kerry lads are 100% aware that they're facing a very different animal tomorrow than they did last year in the semi-final. But this Kerry team are a year older, they're a year stronger, they're a year fitter, the age profile is excellent, there's legs all over the team. And I just feel that if it's a great chance for these men to create a little bit of history themselves, and I just think with all that thrown in, we might just have enough. Again, as Fionn said, if you offered me a 1-point win here now, I'd take it, and I'm hoping that would be the case.
Sean O'Sullivan and Fionn Fitzgerald on satellite from the Kingdom. Thanks so much, lads, and enjoy the game tomorrow. And may the best team win.
Thanks, John. See you guys.
All the best, Dan. See you guys.
John O'Leary, appreciate you coming in. And
thank you.
You're still coaching. You're coaching both camogie and football.
Football and hurling. So I under 15s with Fingal Ravens. For you to know where it is between Swords Ashburn Road and under 15 hurling with Wild Geese out in a small village of Oldtown. So every weekend's in All Ireland. It's like going back full circle and really, really enjoying it.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, isn't it? And it's part of the fabric of what we do, isn't it? What we are. It's not always about the 82,000 there tomorrow. It's about the day in, the day out, the volunteers. Oh,
absolutely. We had a bit of day out this morning in Oldtown from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock there. With sort of an open day for the kids in Wild Geese. Just on the way to see little kids there, doing little drills. And we're trying to grow the hurling game out there because we're surrounded by football only clubs, and we're trying to grow the game of hurling. But we're chipping away, really enjoying it, and. But as you say, it's about giving back, and it's not even about giving back. It's just part of what you do. It's the enjoyment of it.
John, thank you.
Thank you.
John O'Leary, Dublin, former All-Ireland winning captain, ahead of tomorrow's game. We're going to get the thoughts of Desi Farrell and Jack O'Connor ahead of the match, and also hear the best of the Limerick homecoming after last Sunday's All-Ireland senior hurling final win. We're back after this.
Off the ball on News Talk. The News Talk Summer Tour has hit the brakes. We travelled the length and breadth of the country and loved every second.
Team Breakfast has arrived in Drogheda in County Louth.
We're on our summer tour. Tom Dunn is going to give me a tour of Dalkey, all these sights, these sounds and these smells.
Well, I've embarked on News Talk